Hello, I'm Mike Jones from FCSI's Foodservice Consultant Magazine. Welcome to the newly opened Middleby Innovation Kitchen in Munich, Germany, host of this brand new FCSI Innovation in the Kitchen panel session supported by Middleby. The recording today will address the topic of improving sustainability and efficiency in kitchens, and for that I have four exceptional consultants from FCSI EME and FCSI the Americas divisions, plus Meghan Daro from Middleby. So can I ask our panel to briefly introduce themselves and we'll get going. Danny, let's start with you, please.
I'm Danny from Invito Design in the UK. We typically do a lot of sports stadium and arena, and a lot of the drive at the moment is sustainability.
Wonderful. Khaled?
Hi, I'm Khaled. I'm Vice President of Cinilittle, based out of the United States of America, working in food service design and sustainability and waste in many sectors.
Fantastic. Thank you, Khaled. Vinoo?
Hi, my name is Vinoo Mehera. I'm the owner of promaFox. We're based in Switzerland. We are food service consultants over kitchen design and go right up to doing the general contracting for 10 fit-outs.
Fantastic. Thanks, Vinoo. Shaun?
How you doing? I'm Shaun Sterland. I'm owner-founder of Catering Support Services, over 35 years experience and UK-based.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shaun. And Meghan?
And I'm Meghan Daro, Vice President of Consultant Services for Middleby.
Fantastic. And thank you for hosting today, Meghan. First question, Danny, let's start with you. Can you perhaps summarise for us what is a truly sustainable food service operation, and really what are the key tenets of sustainability?
I think when it comes to sustainability, it's how we term it. We ask ourselves, is that sustainable in our general life? Can you sustain it? I.e., can you afford to do it? Can you actually do it? How do you move forward? So to be able to be a sustainable operation, it needs to be sustainable on staff, it needs to be sustainable on water, chemicals, embodied carbon, operational, and in reality, it comes down to cost. If a client is going to save money, that's going to be the driver in the first place, because they need to save money to spend more money elsewhere.
Yeah, great answer, Danny. Thank you. Vinoo, why must the industry get more sustainable? Why do we need to do better across the board?
Well, I think there's a number of interconnected facts why we need to get more sustainable. The first being the environmental impact, then there's the economic benefits, and finally the consumer demand. If I sort of briefly break this down, the food service industry is a huge creator of greenhouse emissions on one side through the food waste and landfills. Then we are also a large consumer of power. And then we also transport, unfortunately, goods over very large distances, which again contributes to greenhouse emissions. On the other hand, we are also big users of water. So we are, that's another reason. Then on the other hand, the economic benefits, if you look at it, saving energy and doing that improves our efficiencies. And improving efficiencies means actually cost savings at the end, which I sort of alluded towards. So there are cost savings that we benefit from.
Yep.
And as owners of restaurants, you can then actually benefit from getting a different client base, which brings to the third point, the consumer demand, where consumers are demanding a different type of more eco-conscious dining. And it's a benefit also for the restaurants who can benefit it. So summarizing it, there are these three factors. One is environmental impact, improving your bottom line, and then the eco-conscious consumer demand that's arising there as well.
Great answer. Thank you, Vinoo. Shaun, you just said there that the three benefits that Vinoo was highlighting. Why then must operators go on that kind of long journey towards becoming more sustainable? And it's it is kind of almost a never-ending journey.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think the trends in the industry change so fast.
Yeah.
So fast at the pace. So to keep up with it all and demands is quite challenging, I assume. But I also think that ordering responsibility would need to be better throughout the team just to get the products. So obviously you prevent things from spiralling, really, with logistics and so on and so forth. And I also think that companies are looking more and more at prioritising things better.
Fantastic. Great answer, Shaun. Thank you. Khaled, Vinoo talked about food waste and the size of the footprint that the industry leaves. Do you believe it is an inherently wasteful industry? And what are the biggest obstacles, the biggest challenges in the way that are preventing the industry from becoming more sustainable, would you say?
I think the first question is interesting, and it's probably a yes and no on the inherently part, because I think inherently, in its current state, in its current structure, it is a wasteful industry. It's a wasteful operation, obviously. But I think it's not inherently wasteful, as in it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It is avoidable. So there's a lot of things that operators can do to kind of revert to a more sustainable type of operation. But that takes everyone kind of rowing in the same direction from different kind of sectors and different scopes to make that happen.
Fantastic. Takes everyone rowing in the same direction, Meghan. So why is collaboration, cooperation the key to this in terms of manufacturers, equipment manufacturers, operators, consultants, all being on the same page with sustainability? What does that help?
I think the alignment there is key. And in fact, listening to what everybody has already said, I'm like taking these mental notes of all the key phrases that you have said that are really vital to an operator, but also some of those pain points or what can be considered as we on the manufacturing side are developing equipment. So things like, food waste, we're always being conscious of, wanting that, consistent product every single time. And what can we do as a manufacturer to implement those technologies into our equipment to help ease some of those pains, right? So I talk a lot about, Johnny Nose Ring in the kitchen, right? He's the back of house kid. He's 16 years old. I want him to be able to just walk up to a piece of equipment and hit a button, right? He can walk away. He can go back to talking to the cute girl who works front of house, or he can be texting. Right now that we want those things, but we know those things are happening in the kitchen. So hearing what those pain points are from our consultants actually helps us as we innovate equipment to kind of prevent that scenario, right? Things like one-touch controls. Johnny Nose Ring can go up, push that button, walk away, and we know that consistent product is coming out every single time. So those types of little acts of sustainability can help contribute to the overall sustainable package of an operation.
Awesome. Thanks, Meghan. Shaun, Meghan mentioned those pain points. From your perspective as a consultant, what are the quick fixes that operators can implement? What are some of the harder things and maybe more longer term approaches that need to be enacted?
Right. Well, I believe obviously the equipment industry and what's on offer can help massively with what we see around in the industry. And I also think looking more at the quick fixes of the seasonal things, the menu changes, that sort of thing. And the harder side of things, I believe, is always going to be regulating equipment, what you're going to be using, managing it, not overproducing too much. And then I also think that if the team could help with more responsible ordering, getting food to site in a more easier, less using 5 days a week type of operation, all of these elements will help.
So across the supply chain, there's lots that can be addressed. Vinoo, I'd like to know whether or not you and your team are fundamentally designing kitchen spaces in a different way now because of your awareness of sustainable impact or the impact of being more sustainable. What are the tangible changes you're seeing in terms of kitchen design?
It starts with that, exactly with the kitchen design. I think, yes, we are more focused on that and we try and get our clients in that direction. Let me just start an example that let's say food waste. You have different temperatures for milk products, for meat, for fish, etc. Often they used to design one walk-in kitchen or just one fridge for that. That doesn't help because actually it requires different temperatures for the purpose. So it starts there itself. What do you need there? Then when you're planning, for example, a fridge right next to a deep fryer, you're going to need more energy. That's the other side of it. This energy has to be then extracted. So again, you're using energy to extract energy of energy. So your footprint, your carbon footprint is everywhere increasing, whether it's be on the one side with the waste or the other side with the planning. And the third is the design of how we are planning it, using now the new technologies, using units which can be used for multi-purpose, and thereby reducing the footprint there and using better equipment as well. It's always a question, as we've said many times, balancing up the cost and the return on that investment, which is one of the key challenges we always have in that, and using it. But as recently someone said, and one of the food summit where I was from Big Mama, which proved what I was always been saying, it said sourcing locally and seeing that you use less energy brought him 1.7% to the bottom line. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. But that needs to sink in. And this is what we are trying to get across to a lot of our customers.
Yeah, there's huge savings to be made. And Khaled, let's talk about how technology can help there. So obviously, equipment's increasingly AI enabled, it's better connected, it's able to capture data better, there's more automation in products that we're seeing now. How is that having a primary kind of impact on sustainability in kitchens? How are you seeing a notable difference there because of the technology?
I think with AI, a lot of the data that we would have all had, as say operators would have, is then analyzed a lot quicker, and then it analyzes where your wastes are.
Yeah.
So instead of just having data, raw data that's not analyzed towards kind of painting a picture, it's showing you exactly where your wastes are with things like, for example, Winow's lean path are one ways that you can track waste. And once you do, the first step is identifying, or becoming more sustainable, is identifying where the pitfalls are. So if you all of a sudden figure out where your waste is, we can start looking at waste, reducing that waste, and then AI can go into stuff like inventory management. How you source the product, how you procure it, menu planning, all the way down to compostable and other kind of front of house waste applications.
So applications in the front and the back of house helpful. Megan, let's bring in your perspective as the manufacturer there. How are you seeing that kind of dial move in terms of operators actually investing more in sustainable equipment? Is the penny dropping?
So I think there are, and we've talked about this a little bit, is there are ways that we can, kind of take small bites of this, right? Like I think going all in on anything, right? In life, in business, or whatever it is, it has to be something that is sustainable, right? So what can we actually do to put in small measures that will take us to a more successful goal? So when I'm thinking about, we talked about IoT, but data and connection, I think about, kind of IoT in general. So imagine a scenario where you're an operator, right? You have those operational hours from, say, 11 to, midnight, right? Take an ice machine, for example, right? I don't need that ice machine running 24/7. I need it running and optimized in my operational peak time periods, right? So if you're closed from midnight to 11, when that ice bin is full, we have the ability for the operator to kick that ice machine off. That ice bin remains full. And you know what? I'm going to kick it back on for what my arrival is in the morning. So I make sure I've got that fresh ice ready to go for my customers. It can be as simple as that. Or, even just the environment around you, right? Air conditioning, heating, there's a lot of different things that we can put small measures into place and actually monitor that, right? And have significant cost savings in energy, right? So it's an act of sustainability, as simple as an ice machine or as simple as the environment around us, to help start to control some of that and really realize those costs in a very effective, almost hands-off approach.
Great, thank you, Megan. Danny, Megan was talking there about some of the small bites, some of the small measures. Let's go back to talk about some of the big measurements, and that's embodied carbon measurement. TM65 is a burgeoning issue here in this industry. Why do you feel it's the tip of the iceberg? Why is this a coming wave, TM65 and embodied carbon?
I don't think it's necessarily a coming wave. I think we as an industry are further behind the rest of the built environment.
Yeah.
They've been measuring it for a long time. There's specialists in it. When it comes to catering equipment, most manufacturers are following on behind. So are the consultants, so are the end users. And until an end user, or it's part of a supply chain or part of the procurement process, no one's going to do it because you don't need to, because of the cost, the infrastructure that goes into it. When you really look at it, to do your TM65, it's the recipe of making that piece of equipment. It is just the fundamentals of what you've made it with. If you look at food labeling, if you know what the ingredients is, you know what your nutritional value is, you know what your calorific value is, and it's exactly the same with a piece of equipment. The coming wave into the UK, main contractors are now putting it in part of their tenders. So when they're going for a build, we'll give you the data on it. So they're doing it on the rest of the building. The catering equipment is like getting dragged along because there is no set standard for it. So you open up the 65 says there's a basic, there's an intermediate. There's some that is left to interpretation. So what's your replaceable parts? Well, it gives you a benchmark of 9-point-something%. Well, some manufacturers will tell us we don't replace that. On a combi oven, one manufacturer said the only thing we ever replace is a door seal, but yet they have a £20,000 van stock that to be a service partner. So really, what is it? It's getting more and more prevalent. The City of London, you now have to declare your embodied carbon on all catering equipment. There isn't a standard for the dealer to use. There isn't a standard for the consultant to use. We can't do it all the way through, even down to fabrication. So fabrication accounts for 30% of a kitchen. It's all bespoke. So you can't go to a manufacturer and say, what's the embodied carbon of your table that's 300 wide? You could do an EPD, it will cost you 700, 800 pounds, £1,000, whatever it is, but the table only costs £300 in the first place. So most manufacturers in the UK being a fabricator, they're quite small, they turn over £1 million, but the table that was £300, it's now £2,000. So there wasn't a cost-effective way to do it.
Right.
Same with a refrigerant system. So the City of London are now bringing it in. We're now having dealers ring us who are going for tenders and say, can you help us do our embodied carbon? We don't know how to do it from the offset, which is interesting, but in the end, it's going to roll out further and further and further. And I think it will gradually catch up and all of the rest of the industry will catch up behind. And we'll be able to measure it and put tangible data to the rest of the 65. At the moment, it's on a journey. I think if you argue it like a marathon, if you don't know where the start of the marathon is, you don't know where the end is, you don't know the length of it. So you need to be able to be a sustainable kitchen. You need to know what you're measuring in the first place before you worry about the operational. If your oven's 10 tons of carbon and it only burns a ton a year and you're only going to have it for a year, the worst part is buying it. If it's 10 tons of carbon, it's going to have a 30-year life. But then the worst part is the operating it. So you have to be able to measure it from the beginning.
Fantastic. Thank you, Danny. Vinoo, from the projects you're working on in Switzerland, is there a desire from operators and the clients you're working with to measure carbon output and embodied carbon? Are you seeing that already? And secondly, just broadly, why is it so important that we measure we manage what we can measure?
Let me break it up. Let's start maybe with the second question first. First, if you don't measure it, you can't prove it. So accountability and transparency is the first thing we need, and that's why we have to measure it. Then there's, of course, the continuous improvement, which you've alluded towards. So basically, every time you're continuously improving something, it's proving what can be done with it. And that brings it with it, again, what we've been talking all the time, then the cost savings and the cost efficiencies with it. And then there's compliance and regulation with EU Green Deal, CSRD, Embodied Carbon, where you've got to start reporting on that. So these are a number of reasons. And there's, of course, the last but not least, the consumers asking you for that as well. So these are a couple of reasons why we need to continuously measure that. Coming to the first part of your question, yes, we are seeing that. One, due to regulation. Two, we're seeing more and more buildings in Switzerland done by Middleby or LEED. The circle which I had presented, at the event, at the FCSI event, it's a LEED Platinum building. We had to bring in LCA assessments and prove the embodied carbon requirements there. There was a demand by the clients. It went so far as to the glues that were being used, how they're disposing the boxes in which the glue was used to stick certain equipment together or for the front of house buffets, etc. So there was a lot of detail there which had to be provided, and then what will happen thereafter is all these calculations. So these demands are coming more and more. In hospitals and by big institutional clients, we're seeing that they're requiring that also from suppliers. That means the food service companies who are doing the operators and need to provide that. That is then a reason why you could win a contract or lose a contract. So this is happening more and more. But not enough, Rob. But it's happening. We're seeing this happening more and more.
Good to hear. Thanks, Vinny. Shaun, let's focus on food waste for a second here. How are you seeing on the projects you're working on and the clients you're working with? How are you seeing attitudes changing in terms of dealing with food waste, managing food waste? What's the direction of travel broadly with the clients you're working on?
Again, I always refer back to the fact that there's some fantastic equipment out there, including what we again see today, that can help in so many areas. But I do think with some of the food waste issues that you see, I think training and education early on is key. As a young chef, I recall a carrot test where it was topping and tailing, and the chef got me to do loads, and then he brought all the clippings off, and you could see clearly, tangibly, the waste, how much you were doing. So you sort of learn quickly, early on, what food wastage was. But I do believe that, there's more and more systems being utilised for the food monitoring systems that are going to help people. And I just think with the right guidance, they can be led down the path to choose the right equipment out.
Thanks very much, Shaun. Khaled, Shaun mentioned their training and education. And let's introduce the role of the consultant in all of this. Why is the consultant so important in terms of helping clients, educating them, talking them through different products that are available in terms of what they can specify in their operation, but generally bringing their experience to bear about a topic like food waste? Why is that important?
I think the food service sector or food operations is a high pressure, intense operation on a daily basis. So what we bring in as a consultant, as an outside consultant, is we bring in a fresh set of eyes first and foremost, right? So sometimes what you're seeing on a daily basis or what you don't see on a daily basis, someone comes in and immediately kind of spots a certain element that's kind of you can fix. We bring obviously a holistic kind of set of eyes or a holistic picture, have an overview of the entire operation, which is extremely important. Now, as far as what we bring in with education, there are a lot of regulations that have to do with sustainability, right? Waste is changing every day. Different jurisdictions have different sort of, requirements and different kind of stream for recycling and whatnot. So we bring a set of expertise that would otherwise maybe not be available from an operations team in-house, which again is very important to understand. Where are we going? You mentioned earlier about the marathon, start and finish, same thing. Where are we trying to get to? And that's very important to understand. And I think lastly, with regards to consultancy, is we bring benchmarking information. So what are the industry standards? What's everyone doing? What's working? What's not working? And I think again that's very important for an operator to hear what everyone else is doing. And at the end of the day, Meghan was saying earlier, start small. Low-hanging fruit. Because if you try and do everything all at once, high cost, upfront, employee operational complexities, menu complexities, there's a lot that, can stop you, and there are a lot of obstacles. So start small.
Thank you, Khaled. Meghan, Khaled talked there about regulatory pressure and having to deal with regulations. What a big area in the States at the moment is electrification.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about why that something like electrification actually represents quite a big opportunity for operators, and why does an increased reliance on things like induction technology and ventless technology, how can that help operators be more sustainable in that regard?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple things that we need to consider with that. One, I think we're making large strides in the Americas relative to ventless and electrifications and things like that. I do think standards outside of the US have kind of pushed the Americas to getting to that higher level. I will say our team on the ventless and electrification side will go out and fight some of those battles for you in the jurisdiction. So when consultants are working on projects, they can pick up the phone and call our teams and know that we have your back. We will go help fight that fight. Make sure that all the equipment that consultants are specifying into those projects are going to meet the needs of those individual jurisdictions. So we do have a full team of folks that will help and move the needle forward on that. And I do want to touch on something too, just relative to, kind of some of the conversation we've had around the training and education and starting small and all this. Like a lot of, just thinking about things like ventless or electrification can be a lot to bite off in any, when we're talking about a complete solution. But what I think that, we're able to help support is educating our consultant partners so they can go out and educate those clients, make sure that the equipment that's being specified is going to be the right fit. I think there's a lot of opportunities when we're talking about sustainability relative to those two really key areas on electrification. And I think the rest of the world, has to pull the Americas through a little bit on that. And I think we can definitely get to that point. But I do think the education, the training behind it, the continued optimization, and taking those small strides into, the forward thinking and the innovation when it comes to putting all that together to make a sustainable operation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Meghan. Danny, let's get your view on that. How are some of those kind of areas of technology that Meghan was just talking about, how are they helping your clients to behave more sustainably? How is technology helping?
So we have a client at the moment in a historic building that doesn't have enough electric, doesn't have enough water, doesn't have enough vent, doesn't have planning permission for putting some of the plant on the roof. So,
but apart from that, they're okay.
Apart from that, they're going to put in 6 kitchens. We don't have enough electric and we don't have enough money, which is always the thing. But by using technology, we've actually got to a solution where in one restaurant, we didn't have enough electric to do one kitchen and the lounge. We now, by using a diversification technology and optimizing the electric, we can do 2 kitchens. We've got another main production kitchen that didn't have planning permission for the plant to go on the roof. We also didn't have hot water in the kitchen, and we didn't have enough electric again. So we've put heat reclaim on the refrigeration system. It doesn't take out all of the electric needed to boil the water for the hot water on the system, but it actually alleviates enough for us to operate. So it allows us to do more. And I think we have to look sideways, take everything from each manufacturer. We have ventless equipment because we don't have the duct, we don't have the roof for a building. Everything adds in. And then you can take the data Once we've got this real data, because at the moment we don't know. So a piece of equipment has a connected load of 8 kilowatts. We apply a diversity factor 70, 80%, or do it down the entire cook line. We've got 100 kilowatts, we're saying we need 70. We don't really know what it is, and we don't know what it is in a sports venue, we don't know what it is in a hospital, we don't know what it is in a restaurant, we don't know where it is throughout the day. And then once we have that technology in place and enough venues to take the data, we can then make a tangible assessment industry-wide, not just say it works here, because every venue operates differently. So we have to take it and say, this is your benchmarking across the industry, and then we can make an informed decision. Going from gas to electrification, it's a lot if you're changing the gas. We did it last year on a venue, we just don't have the electric. Now if we have the data, which is more important, we can then make that assessment moving forwards as to where do we go.
Great answer, Danny, thank you. A final question which I'd like you to all answer if possible, nice and quickly. Why must this sector continue to embrace sustainability in order to face a future that's increasingly uncertain, perhaps? So Danny, let's start with you, please.
If we don't embrace it, then we're not going to move forwards and we'll be left behind against everybody else. And we can't move forwards as an industry. If we look at our waste, I think we have lots of waste streams, which they can all be used. We have heat, we have water, you can optimize all of that, and it can actually be better for us. And in the end, the client saves money so they can spend more money and more innovation.
Super, thank you, Danny. Khaled, same question.
I think in a world where everyone is striving, and every sector is striving to be more sustainable, we have to do our job as well in the kitchen and food service industry to stay in line with all the other sectors. Because at the end of the day, the kitchen in a building is a very high power output facility, but we're part of the entire building. And sometimes we're just in the kitchen for too long to not realize the impact that it has on the entire building. So I feel that we should be, if not ahead, we should keep up with other sectors.
Great answer. Vinoo, same question?
It goes to the same direction. I mean, basically, we are accountable for a third of all the emissions in food waste. So, I mean, 30% the third is a huge chunk. So if we don't do our part to it and don't contribute to it correctly, we're creating a huge problem. So we have to move ahead with this and improve on it. And as I said, at the end of the day, it's a benefit for everybody, and for the operators and for the clients. And there's no going back on it anymore. Of course, there's regulation, like I always said, there's always this carrot and stick tendency which we have, but that's the way it's going to be. So we have to. There's no going back.
Yep. Good stuff. Shaun, same question, please.
I just think a keen eye and a focused mind on all of these elements, really, and just everybody sort of just moving forward, sort of keep on the same path.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shaun. And Meghan.
I think it circles back to one of the first things I think that you said, Mike, was around the alignment and the communication. It was the first question to me on, how we can work with our consultant partners. So we understand we're a piece of that puzzle, and we said it, many times on taking just small pieces of that and working towards the sustainable future, whether that's, it's all the, things that Danny brought up on, taking one piece of equipment that can now achieve a couple of different goals, right? And how we move that forward as an industry. We're on the manufacturing side. What can we do to have our part to meet the needs of the consultant partners who are ultimately going to meet the needs of the operation, and to really move forward that sustainable operation is what we can do to do our part in working together and keeping that communication and alignment open.
Yeah, working together is the key. Let's draw things to a close there. I'd like to thank very sincerely Danny, Khaled, Vinoo, Shaun, and to Meghan as well. And thank you to Middleby for supporting FCSI and hosting this event in their beautiful new Middleby Innovation Kitchen in Munich. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.